Cuts to Medicaid, SNAP benefits, Medicare, Social Security, measles outbreaks, whooping cough outbreaks. And what do we need to know that we can't see? And will the full moon that's this evening help us see it? Let's look into all that. Welcome to Swearing Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First of all, thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to the person who posted in the comments of one of the videos, let's help Trevor get more subscribers. It seemed to work. I think we're up 300 subscribers in like 24 hours. So that's fantastic. Thank you for everybody who likes, watches, shares the videos. And those of you that comment, I really appreciate the comments. I like to um, hear from you. They're very informative and touching. And those of you that have donated to the channel, I'm very much appreciative. I don't expect donations, but I humbly receive them. Okay, let's look into that. So the House passed a budget that cuts $2 trillion from the budget, but increases the deficit by something like 19 trillion, not the deficit, the national debt by $19 trillion over 10 years, provides for huge tax cuts. Let's look into that. Let's see if it's actually going to happen because they have to meet with the Senate, right? The Senate and the House have to have their budgets meet in order for something to become law. That's just the way things work. They're using a process called reconciliation. That way they don't need 60 votes in the Senate. So the Democrats won't be able to stop it there. But maybe not everybody's on board because there are some real consequences to this. It would be horrific if this happens. And I know there are a lot of scared people right now. Um, whether you rely on Medicaid for, your children or grandchildren, whether uh, you yourself are receiving Medicaid and disability benefits, whether, you're worried about Medicare, if you are part of the SNAP program, getting those benefits cut. I think they want to cut those benefits down to where it'd be $1.60, where the budget would be $1.60 per meal for an adult, which is, I don't even know what you can buy for $1.60. Maybe one can of tuna fish, not much. Um, and then Section 8 housing, which is a program that allows landlords to rent to people that have a lower income, and the government pays part of the rent and the person pays part of the rent. So let's look into all that, but let's specifically start with Medicaid because this is a way of trying to gut Obamacare as well. Obamacare has to do with Medicaid reimbursements. So, what can you tell us about Medicaid cuts? Okay, I'm getting an image of, I think it's the inside of a courtroom or something very similar to that. Looks like there'll definitely be some legal issues around what they're trying to do. Now, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination on how these things work, but my understanding is that a reconciliation bill cannot fundamentally change a program, right? Like they could never, for example, pass an abortion ban using reconciliation because that would fundamentally change a law. It's only supposed to be used to change tax policy and maybe a little bit of budget stuff if you can relate it to being associated with taxes. So if you fundamentally alter Medicaid, I'm not sure but that would hold muster. So what do we need to know about Medicaid? I see the Three of Cups. That's about circles of support and celebration. I think that's people coming together to try to ward this off. This would be, a good time to call your senator for sure. We get the Ace of Wands. This is kind of a fiery new beginning. When people really start to feel the pain of what this administration's doing, like, my neighbor, for example, who worked in the national park system, who lost his job, and I haven't seen him flying his Trump flag for the last 3 or 4 days. So uh, his daughters and I talk a little bit, but um, when you start to feel the reaction or the impact, um, that really changes minds. We get the Ten of Coins as the challenge, or the Ten of Pentacles as the challenge. This is about inheritance, but it's about the next generation. So the challenge is going to be people thinking about the next generation and what these effects will have on them. We do get some steady and consistent leadership with the Queen of Swords. We get moving away from troubled waters. This is in the past. So intuitively, what I have thought is that a fair number of senators on the Republican side, MAGA side, have already discussed this and aren't going to go along with it. And that's why the Senate bill went first, is because they're kind of saying this is as far as we'll go. We're not going to go any further. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of sleepless nights. This makes a lot of sense. This is very troubling. It, it troubles me. It makes me worry about people I know that are benefits of these programs, particularly, my elderly mother who's on Medicare and Social Security. Um, and I have a nephew who has autism, who's on Section 8 housing and on Medicaid. There's going to be a lot of fighting in the near future. So this is a good sign. This is a very positive card. This isn't going to go through without just one heck of a fight. I'm kind of getting the image of from when they first tried to, not first, but the last time they tried to repeal Obamacare, and people were showing up with disabilities and just kind of invading the Capitol, so to speak. Invading is the wrong word, but just uh, showing up in large numbers at the Capitol to make their presence known and what effect it would have on their lives. I think we're going to need to see a similar response, and hopefully this card is telling us that's what we're going to get. We get some new beginnings around money, new way of thinking about individual budgets and how they would be affected. We get the Lovers card. We get people coming together. And then the hopes and fears, we get the Fool card. So this is about new beginnings, but also can be about foolish behavior. And I think in this case, it's about both. The fears, foolish behavior, that this House people and senators will just foolishly pass this because this is what the felon wants. But the hope is that this is a new beginning of them standing up to the felon. And we have seen them stand up to the felon in regard to the budget deal. So not that it was good for the country, because it wasn't, but it could have been a lot worse. We get the Page of Wands. So fiery messages. People are going to be shouting out at their congressperson and their senators. They're going to know. Ultimately, we get victory. That's a good sign. And here's the Hierophant, which is the courts. It's kind of what I was seeing. Um, it might take the courts to undo what they do. So if it passes, don't lose hope. The courts might undo it and put a quick injunction on it, but they're going to try. But I think it's going to get pared down somewhat from what the House is trying to do. People are hard at work talking about intergenerational relationships, and then we have the death card um, underneath. So the end of this kind of tyranny. Here's the card for the Democrats, and bombshell surprises, the truth coming out about people being left out in the cold. So I think the truth is going to come out that the real world consequences of this is severe. It's not just a line item on the budget. It's people's lives and livelihoods, and we need to be aware of that. And we need to let our voices be heard. So, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law have already called asking whether they should be worried about their son, right? Their adult son that's living with autism and currently has his own apartment, currently pretty self-sufficient. Um, but that's because of Section 8, SNAP benefits, Medicaid, health insurance. These things have real world consequences. It's not like he'll be able to get a job because he's decently functional, but he's not that high functional to where holding a 40-hour a week job would ever happen. So, and then do we need to be worried about, let's go a little bit further here. Do we need to be worried about, or let's not phrase it that way. What can you show us about the Medicare, Social Security, and SNAP programs? I think SNAP is probably the one so SNAPs used to be called food stamps. This is the one that a lot of people just fail to see the benefit to it. Economically, it actually makes money because you give money to people that they're going to spend, so it keeps jobs in the grocery stores. And Medicare, Social Security. Yeah, I'm seeing that five of wands type of energy, that like people gathering together in large numbers. The question is whether their voices will be heard, not literally heard, but whether they'll be taken seriously, because they seem to be ignoring a lot of things right now. So they're not in a good position. They're having to defend this. So that's a good sign. They're defending their positions. The challenge is the death card again. Um, the challenge is that this literally could lead to deaths. I mean, it really is, that's not a hyperbolic statement. If you cut off people's Medicare and Medicaid, they're not going to get the health care that they need, which means they can put off health appointments, which leads to more serious things that could have been prevented. So I think this is literal death as being the challenge of that message getting out. We have the Five of Pentacles. This is poverty, being let out in the cold or left out in the cold. We have circles of support and celebrations. It's in the past, though. These programs are highly supported by the public. We get the Lovers card again. That's interesting. So this is, partnerships, maybe strange bedfellows, in the sense of people coming together that you might not think would come together. And I was kind of getting that a little bit earlier, that from the Senate negotiations, I think there were the Senate holdouts because I think there were senators that wanted to go and cut more. But I think the holdouts were from some rural states where they're worried about the rural hospitals. Bill Cassidy from Louisiana comes to mind as possibly being one. I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch McConnell was one too. um, the states that have these hospitals, and driving isn't necessarily easy. Bigger rural states like South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Kansas, Idaho, Montana, there isn't a hospital within 50 miles for a lot of people already. And if these small rural hospitals start to close, so I think you might see some strange relationships coming together to not let these things be taken down. In the near future, we have judgment, and the angels blowing the horn and waking the dead. I think people are going to start to wake up, and they're going to be telling people exactly what they think of these bills. We do get heartache, um, with the Three of Swords. We get illusion and delusion with the Seven of Cups. They're delusional if they think this isn't going to affect the public dramatically. And they're illusional or delusional that they think that their support is guaranteed from the voters. It's not. We get the Ten of Swords and the hopes and fears. This is the end of a dark cycle, complete and utter downfall. I think this is both a hope and a fear. I think the hope is this will be the end of pushing these type of agendas for the near term. And the fear is that this will be the end of these programs. And then we get temperance as the outcome. So it's moderation. We get the Knight of Cups, passionate messages being told, people sharing their story on how they either directly or indirectly benefit from these programs. And we get the Knight of Pentacles, again, people sharing their stories on how they're, this is, in the case of Social Security, it really literally is your money. You're just getting it back. So I think the public's going to come back. We have juvenile behavior with the Page of Swords. We got abuse of power, mis and disinformation with the Devil card. So, they originally said people that are 150 years old are getting Social Security. Turns out they don't know how to read Cobalt code. We get fiery messages coming forward. We get movement with the Chariot card, and we get the Fool card again, and new beginnings with the Ace of Pentacles. So I'm concerned. I don't know how concerned we should really be with these exactly. But I think, if you have the chance, you should contact your representative and your senator and let them know that this is not okay. And tell the stories, tell the impassioned stories of how exactly this is benefiting you. I mean, there are people whose children are on Medicaid because the parents can't work, especially if they're single parents. They can't work because they're taking care of their sick children that perhaps has a serious diagnosis, right? That um, the only choice is for them to stay home and take care of their children. Okay. Will if these things pass, if there are cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, SNAP, will this be the downfall and the collapse of this administration? So ultimately, that's the only fear they know is their power going away. I hear that, and I said it, so I must believe it. I think there's a few that can be swayed, but not many. Certainly, if the bill gets to the felon's desk, he's going to sign it. So it has to be stopped when they start negotiating these two bills together. Will this be the downfall of this administration and Republican lawmakers if they pass such cuts. Yeah, we get surprising messages, new messages, things they haven't heard. I just got the image of somebody giving one of them the finger that normally spread profanity, but that was just a real sharp image there. Uh, the challenge is the world, the ending a program or altering a program significantly is always going to be a challenge anywhere, especially a program that's so ingrained in the country. You know, these programs have been around for quite a while, and Social Security came about because of the problems with being able to retire. We get the ADA cups. People are going to walk away from them if they no longer serve them, if they no longer represent them. People are going to walk away with the ADA cups. They had celebrations with the Knight of Wands in the past and messages that worked, but the messages of we're going to get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse, which resonated with people, they didn't realize what they meant by that is that they were the fraud, waste, and abuse. That's the way the MAGA movement sees anybody that is any remotely reliant on some government program. And the truth of the matter is almost everybody's reliant on some government program. Farmers are reliant on, lower interest loans from the farm associations that the government runs, right? Everybody is reliant on something. Here's the five of wands. They're gonna get pushed back. It's going to be uh, more than they ever expected if they do it. We get the page of pentacles. People are going to start withholding their support. They're going to get justice. You know, the way you treat others is the way you will be treated. They see it as a crossroads. The hope and fears, we get strength. I think this is kind of one of these dual cards where the hope is that they have the strength not to do it. The fear is that they have the strength to still have support after they do it. The outcome, we get intergenerational relationships with the Six of Cups. We get pausing and suspension, rethinking one's plans, and oops, we get the truth with the Ace of Swords. Wish fulfillment, illusion, delusion, isolation, shedding a light on things, ultimately moving out of troubled waters, the Six of Swords, uh, the Temperance card, going to a place of moderation where there's no longer abuse of power. This is, I think the Emperor's actually waiting for this bill to come forward and it just doesn't come. And it's going to be a tower-like moment for him. And then we get reunions and celebrations. If they pass it, they will lose the House in 2022. The Senate's a little trickier, but they possibly could lose the Senate as well. I No, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. They're going to pass something, I think. I think it's just going to be really pared down, kind of what the Senate did, which is not good, but it's not as extreme as what the House just passed. So there's that. I'm just going to cleanse the energy and talk a little bit about what I saw when I was meditating. So this is a Palo Santo stick, if you're interested. Um, so I had this image of, it looked like a young boy, probably 4, maybe 5, 6 years old, somewhere in that kind of age range, maybe not quite a toddler, but not much older than a toddler, uh, like having a coughing attack, like he couldn't stop coughing. And then that image was followed by the image of like a dormitory in a barracks where large groups of people gather together to live. And it reminded me of the whooping cough outbreak when I was in college years and years ago, where for the most part, everybody was vaccinated, so it wasn't a big deal. But I don't know what the vaccination status is in the country for whooping cough. Um, but do we need to be worried about measles outbreaks, whooping cough outbreaks, and the bird flu? Do we need to be worried about these things? I Let's take the bird flu separately. Do we need to be worried about wide scale breakouts of whooping cough, measles, mumps, rubella, all the things that we thought were in the distant past, smallpox, all the things people used to get vaccinated for? I think smallpox is eradicated, so maybe not the one. Do we need to be worried about outbreaks of diseases that have vaccines to prevent them? Let's phrase it that way. Do we need to be worried about unvaccinated people causing an outbreak of diseases that have vaccines for them? So there's already like 100 cases of measles in Texas, something like that. And measles is very dangerous for pregnant women, which I don't think a lot of people somehow overlook that. So it's measles is very, it can be very, very serious in a lot of ways. Well, here's the felon. The challenge is walking away from things that don't serve us. Do we have the ability to, for the anti-vaccine crowd, do they have the ability to, if an outbreak starts, to just hurry up and vaccinate people to contain it? So I'm getting the image of an infant crying. Looks like they have like I don't think I've ever seen measles directly, but reminds me of chicken pox, which they vaccinate for now too. And then I see a young couple fighting. I don't know. I think the anti-vax crowd, some of them might change their minds and vaccinate if an outbreak starts to happen. There's work on trying to get the vaccines out. This work is being done by doctors and medical professionals, not the government. In the past, we had partnerships. We had a relationship with vaccines. This is what I'm getting, but it's in the past now. It's no longer the case. I mean, I remember when I went to college and I lived in the dorms, I had to prove that I was vaccinated to live in the dorms. And now you don't have that because you can just claim religious exemptions. We get the Hierophant. This is the courts, the Pope, um, the government, perhaps stepping in the near future. That we get the Seven of Swords. This is deceit, deception, thievery. Get the World card. We get the end of a cycle. I'm afraid the news is not good. The end of the cycle is that for many years we never had to worry about these things. When the swine flu broke out, what was that, like 2013, 2014, you know, you just walked into the pharmacy and they shoved some spray up your nose. and people kind of just went with it. People didn't argue about it. They just got vaccinated. We get wish fulfillment, and the hopes and fears. We get a message coming forward. The hope is that the message will be heard. The fear is the message won't. And we get immaturity, a spy in the camp, the unvaccinated in the group. We get moderation. I think the outbreaks will be somewhat moderate. We get the truth being revealed in time. So I think in the near term, there's going to be some outbreaks, messages coming forward, the wheel of fortune, realizing that this can lead to death in some cases, and consistency, fiery messages, things unseen, but ultimately moving away from troubled waters. So let me just, the cards are kind of a little all over the place here. This is what I think is gonna to happen. And for entertainment purpose only, this is a tarot reading. I can be right, I can be wrong. I think there will be outbreaks of measles, whooping cough, various other things that we vaccinate for. I don't think it will reach a large level. I do think people will start to vaccinate their children once it reaches a certain level, which will help contain it. But I think this is something we're going to have to live with every year for a long time. And I think the fear for, yeah, there's a fear that kind of sets in with young mothers and young fathers, or new mothers and new fathers, not necessarily young, about what this means for their infants and their pregnancies. So yeah, I wish that was a happier outcome, but I don't. I'll always tell you the truth if I see something. I don't. I don't see it as being super bad, but if you're the individual affected, of course, it's horrible and horrific. Okay, so we have a new moon in Pisces today. Um, what do we need to know about that? Let's just pull, I think we'll pull some cards. So this is the Spellcaster's Tarot. This is one of the new decks that the channel bought. So just give us three cards and then we'll pull some oracle cards. What do we need to know about the new moon and let's phrase that differently. So the new moon is coming, meaning light is ending and the moon will start to illuminate again, shedding lights on things. What are the things that are hidden that'll be coming to the surface that we need to know about as we go through this new moon? Things hidden that we need to. I'm seeing like a medicine bottle, and I think it says like, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's an antidepressant. I think we need to know that not all of us are okay. There was a campaign started a year or two ago of, what was it called? It was started in the LGBTQIA plus community. It was called Just Ask. That's what it was called. And the idea is call a friend and just ask how they're doing. Just ask. I'm getting that. These are trying times. Somebody in the comments said I should be more upbeat. I don't try to be downbeat. I just saying it like it is. What do we need to know? Just three cards. What do we need to know as we approach the full moon or the new moon? So this video will get released on the day of the new moon. The new moon is like 7:44 or something Eastern time. If you want an exact, well, that card wanted to be seen, so we'll see what that is. We get the Eight of Swords. We feel trapped, but it's an illusion. So if you look into what the Eight of Swords really means, it's like a self-confinement. We feel trapped. We feel like we're stuck in the situation and we can't get out. But the truth is, it's of our own making in some sense. So I think that goes along with the ask your friends how they're doing. We get the King of Swords. We need to know that there's steady leadership coming. It's not here yet, and it might not be here for a while, but it is coming. And we get the Ten of Pentacles. We need to know that we need to be looking out for the future generations, not just ourselves. We need to look out for ourselves. I'm not saying we don't need to do that, but we need to look out for the future generations because some of the decisions that are going down now will affect them as well. And we get the Hierophant. So we need to know. I'm going to interpret this a lot slightly different than the way it would normally be interpreted. We need to know that spirituality can bring comfort. And however you choose to express your spirituality is fine, whether that's going to church, whether that's, you know, subscribing to a certain religious text and that dogma around that, or whether it's, you know, just lighting candles every once in a while and saying prayers to yourself. We need to know that that all has an effect on how the universe works. And so if we can manifest together a more pleasant place, we have that ability. Um, so let's pull some oracle cards on this as well. I think I'm going to use the animal oracle deck. I like this deck. It's just usually kind of just spot on. Give us like, there's five. Give us five cards of what we need to know about the new moon and things to help us get through these times, or any hints on things that we need to know that we don't know, or things that we need to know that we've forgotten. So my little candle holder here is a frog. And I have that because the frog to me is a symbol of decluttering my mind and allowing communication to be clear. And I hope it is mostly clear. So I'm seeing the frog oracle. That's why I put that out. So decluttering your mind, deciphering between which of your worries are real and which of your worries are not. Somebody's supposed to hear that. I'm not sure if that's not for everybody. But remember, anxiety lies. So just know that anxiety and depression lie. Take the lead. Put yourself out there. Make the phone call. There's somebody you haven't talked to in a while that you've been thinking about. Make the phone call. Take the lead. manifest, bring your ideals to life, the electric eel spirit. The universe is full of energies that you can pull from to manifest. The moth spirit, surrender now. I think what this means to me is that it means accept the situation you're currently in. It doesn't mean don't fight against it or give up on your morals and your values. What it means is work within the space that you currently occupy. So surrender to your environment as it is, not as, and if it's not as you want it, you can use the electric ill spirit to try to manifest something better. The horse spirit, freedom is yours. Again, I think this is all about releasing a lot of mental stress. And this is interesting, the dolphin spirit. This and that are true. This I think really sums up how February just was. This and that are true. You could have a conversation with two people and they left the conversation thinking that two different things were discussed. I had that experience a few times this month. So be clear in your communications. Okay. I hope that was helpful. All right. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.